Imagine driving through a quiet parking lot and spotting a mother cradling her baby, living out of a car. For most, it's a heartbreaking scene, but for Keanu Reeves, it was a call to action. What he did next will leave you speechless and prove why he's not just a Hollywood star, but a true hero at heart. Stay tuned for this incredible story of kindness and compassion. And before we dive in, let us know in the comments, where are you watching this video from? Keanu Reeves spots a homeless mother huddled in her car with a baby, bundled in a mismatched patchwork of blankets, fighting against the chill of the biting night air. Her weariness is etched into her every movement, and the baby's faint cries break the otherwise silent expanse of the parking lot. What he does next will not only alter their fate, but will leave you absolutely astonished. Before we dive deeper into this heartwarming story, let us know where you're tuning in from. If stories like this inspire you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, we'll share another incredible tale. Now, back to the story. Keanu Reeves steps out of the supermarket, balancing 2 shopping bags in one hand. The evening is crisp, the cool air carrying the scent of pine and the faint hum of passing traffic. A gentle breeze brushes past him, setting the parking lot's trees into a soft, rhythmic sway. Keanu adjusts his jacket hood, his gaze instinctively sweeping the area, always alert, never hurried, a habit honed over years of navigating fame. For Keanu, nights like this are grounding. Earlier in the day, he had wrapped up filming ahead of schedule. With unexpected free time, he decided to tackle small, everyday tasks, picking up groceries, stepping briefly into a world untainted by flashing cameras and red carpets. These unassuming moments, like standing in checkout lines or maneuvering shopping carts, tether him to reality and offer a sense of balance amidst the chaos of stardom. As he exits the store and heads toward his car, something unusual catches his eye. Parked in a dimly lit corner is an old car, decades past its prime, its windows fogged from the inside. Hanging laundry shifts gently in the breeze, a silent testament to its unconventional purpose. Keanu's steps slow as a sense of unease creeps over him. His eyes are drawn to a woman nearby, moving with a purposeful yet weary rhythm as she collects scattered shopping carts. Her clothes are threadbare, her demeanor both tense and self-conscious, as if she's hoping to blend into the shadows. The way she moves, the occasional glance toward the old car, it all connects in an unspoken narrative. Could that vehicle be her refuge, her home? The thought stirs something deep within him. He approaches cautiously, not wanting to alarm her. "Hi," he says softly, his tone warm and unthreatening. The woman freezes, gripping the cart she was about to push. Her gaze meets his briefly before flickering away, her body language radiating distrust. "Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?" Keanu asks, his words gentle yet earnest. Her response is guarded, her tone brisk. "No, I'm fine. Thank you." Her fingers tighten around the cart as she takes a step back, signaling that the conversation is over. Keanu nods, sensing her discomfort. "All right, if you need anything, I'll be around." Without another word, she retreats to the old car, sliding into the driver's seat in a practiced motion. Keanu watches from a distance, his concern deepening as he notices her cradling something in her arms. It's then that he sees it, the faint outline of a baby shifting in her embrace, its tiny form illuminated by the parking lot's dim lights. The sight sends a pang through his chest. He takes a step back, torn between respecting her space and the overwhelming urge to help. As the mother adjusts the baby in her arms, Keanu hesitates, his mind racing. Eventually, he turns toward his own car, but he can't shake the image of the fragile pair. Before getting in, he casts one last glance toward the corner of the lot. The silhouette of the mother and her child remains, etched into his mind like a haunting plea for compassion. Keanu closed his eyes for a brief moment, allowing the gravity of the situation to wash over him. As he started the engine, one thing was clear. There was no way he could ignore what he'd just seen. The following morning, Keanu Reeves found himself steering his car back toward the same supermarket. He hadn't been able to shake the memory of the woman from the day before, the way she pushed carts with tension etched into her posture, the old, weathered car with clothes draped inside, and the quiet heaviness that lingered in the air. Keanu could have dismissed it all, pretended it wasn't his concern, but something about her situation gnawed at him. Parking in the same spot, he scanned the lot. The car was still there, parked in the corner, its foggy windows revealing scattered belongings inside. A few steps ahead, he spotted her again. This time, she carried a small plastic bag as she walked briskly toward the vehicle. Keanu watched from a distance, careful not to intrude, as she placed the bag in the back seat. Quietly, Keanu retrieved 2 items he'd brought along: a bottle of mineral water and a neatly folded blanket, still wrapped in its packaging. He approached the car with deliberate calm, setting the items gently on the hood where she would notice them. Without a word, he retreated to his vehicle, staying far enough to give her space, but close enough to observe. Moments later, the woman opened the car door and cautiously stepped out. Her eyes landed on the items, and she glanced around, as if searching for the person who had left them. Keanu remained still, watching as she hesitated, then finally picked up the water and blanket. She murmured something under her breath, perhaps a quiet thank you, though Keanu couldn't hear. With her new belongings in hand, she slipped back into the car and shut the door. Keanu started his own car and drove away, his emotions tangled, a blend of relief that he had acted and frustration that it still didn't feel like enough. On the 3rd day, Keanu returned. He parked once again in the same corner, his resolve firm. This time, he needed to approach her with more care, more intention. Watching from afar, he saw her pushing carts again, her movements slow, her face marked by exhaustion. When she neared her car, Keanu stepped forward. His voice was soft, almost hesitant, as he said, "Hi." The woman froze, startled, her body tensing as she turned to face him. "I'm the guy who left the water and blanket yesterday," he explained gently. "I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable." Her wary eyes locked on him, guarded but tinged with curiosity. "Why?" she asked, her tone edged with suspicion. Keanu shrugged, keeping his tone light. "I saw you here yesterday. It seemed like you could use them. That's all." He paused, careful not to push too hard. "I don't want to invade your space. If you don't want to talk, that's okay. But sometimes accepting help doesn't mean weakness. It's just another way forward." Her silence stretched between them before she finally said, "Thank you for the water and the blanket." Her words were cautious, each one carrying a weight of uncertainty. Keanu nodded, respecting her pace. "I just want to help," he said sincerely, "but only if you're okay with it." The woman didn't respond, but Keanu noticed the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. It wasn't much, but it was something. Sensing her reluctance, he decided not to press further. He turned to leave, but a faint sound caught his attention, a baby's muffled cry from inside her car. He stopped, looking toward her, but didn't ask questions. The woman hurriedly opened the door and cradled the baby in her arms, rocking him gently. Keanu hesitated, then spoke. "Does he need anything? Formula, diapers, anything at all?" Her tired eyes met his, the weight of her struggles evident. At first she seemed ready to refuse, but Keanu saw her resolve waver. Her maternal instinct, her desire to protect her child, overpowered her pride. "I need milk," she said at last, her voice barely audible. Keanu nodded, understanding the significance of her small admission. "Wait here," he said. "I'll be back in a few minutes." Without waiting for her response, Keanu headed to the nearest store. When he returned with powdered milk, diapers, and wipes, the woman eyed him warily, but accepted the items. "Thank you," she murmured, holding them like treasures she thought she'd never have again. As she adjusted the baby in the car, Keanu lingered nearby. "I know it's none of my business," he said softly, "but if you need anything, I'll be around." Her quiet reply, "Things weren't supposed to be like this," carried more weight than she realized. It wasn't just frustration, it was a silent plea for help. That night, Keanu couldn't shake the encounter. The next morning, he returned to find her standing outside the car, cradling the baby, exhaustion etched into her face. Approaching gently, he offered a small smile. "I told you I'd be around," he said. This time, her gaze was softer. "You came back," she said, surprise in her voice. He nodded. "I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable." She shook her head. "No, it was kind of you." He asked her name, and after a pause, she answered, "Emily." "The baby," she said, "was Oliver." Keanu complimented the name, and the tension in her posture eased slightly. Wanting to build trust, he shared his own struggles, speaking of loss and leaning on others to get through. Emily stared at Oliver as tears threatened to spill. "Sometimes it feels like no one cares," she admitted. "I care," Keanu said firmly. "I mean it. I want to help." That night, he left a bag of supplies by her car with a note. For Emily and Oliver. No strings attached, just care. The next morning, she found the gifts, tears welling as she picked up a small toy. Later, she thanked him, her voice trembling as she admitted, "I lost everything. My husband, my home, everything." Keanu encouraged her to take her time. Slowly, Emily began to share. Her husband, Liam, had died in a car accident, and his parents fought for custody of Oliver, claiming she was unfit. Fleeing with her son, she worked tirelessly to rebuild, only to lose her job and end up living in her car. Her voice shook as she described her downward spiral. "I thought I could start over, but no one wanted to hire a mother with a child. Every door closed on us." Keanu listened intently, determined to help her rewrite the ending to her story. She glanced down, her voice trembling with exhaustion. "So here we are. Every day, I hustle, picking up odd jobs, pushing carts, just hoping no one notices we live in our car. And I know Oliver deserves better. He does, but I'm so tired. I'm just so tired." Keanu's chest tightened. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, his gaze steady. "Emily," he began, his voice soft but firm. "You're fighting a battle no one should have to face alone. No one can blame you for that." Her head snapped up, her tear-streaked face etched with disbelief. "But I should have figured it out by now. I should—" "You're trying," Keanu interrupted, his voice gentle yet resolute. "That's more than most people would do. You fight for Oliver every single day. That's extraordinary, Emily." Silence stretched between them before she finally murmured, "What do I do now?" "I'm at the end of my rope." Keanu met her gaze, determination lighting his eyes. "We'll figure it out together. I promise. Wait here." Before she could respond, Keanu stood and walked to his car. As Emily watched him leave, her heart twisted in uncertainty, hope warring with fear. Inside his car, Keanu grabbed his phone, dialing furiously. He needed to act quickly. 40 minutes later, Keanu returned, his car pulling into the same supermarket lot. Emily, still sitting in her car with Oliver clinging to her side, looked up at the sound of the engine. Her expression was guarded, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Keanu stepped out, holding a small envelope in his hand. He approached her cautiously, stopping at a respectful distance. "I got a room for you and Oliver," he said, raising the envelope slightly. "It's just a simple motel, but it's clean, safe, and warm. You can rest tonight, and tomorrow we'll make a plan." Emily slowly stepped out of her car, clutching Oliver tightly. Her weary eyes searched Keanu's face for any sign of deceit. Instead, she found only sincerity. This was the first glimmer of hope she had seen in a very long time. Her gaze flickered between the envelope and Keanu's face, torn with uncertainty. "I can't take this. I don't want charity." "This isn't charity," Keanu said firmly, though his tone remained gentle. "It's help. Everyone needs help sometimes. Please, let me do this for you." She hesitated, exhaustion etched into her every movement, before finally extending her hand to take the envelope. Inside, she found a room key, an address to a nearby motel, and cash for food. Her throat tightened as a mix of relief and shame washed over her. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely audible. Keanu smiled warmly. "You're welcome. I'll follow behind you to make sure you get there safely." The motel room was modest, yet to Emily, it felt like pure luxury. A large bed with fresh sheets, a small private bathroom, and the warm glow of a bedside lamp created a soothing atmosphere. Gently, she placed Oliver on the bed, tucking him in with care. For the first time in weeks, he slept peacefully, undisturbed by the discomfort of the car. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face as she watched him. The floodgates opened, releasing emotions she had bottled up for far too long. It was the first time in ages she felt a semblance of safety, a flicker of hope. Her eyes landed on the note that accompanied the key, and Keanu's simple words echoed in her mind. "You're not alone. We're in this together." Meanwhile, outside, Keanu lingered in his car, staring at the faint stars scattered across the city's night sky. His thoughts churned as he reflected on Emily's plight, the injustices, the daily battles, and the weight of her struggles. "This isn't enough," he muttered, shaking his head. Providing a safe night's rest or a bit of cash wasn't enough. She needed more, a foundation to rebuild her life. Determined, he picked up his phone and began dialing contacts. "We're going to make a real change," he whispered, typing a message to a trusted friend. No one should have to go through this alone. Inside, Emily whispered softly to herself as she lay down on the mattress for the first time in months. Maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning. Keanu, still parked outside, finished an important call and glanced toward the glowing motel in the distance. A resolute smile crossed his face. He knew the next steps would be crucial, and he was ready to take them. Keanu woke up early, driven by purpose. He'd spent the night mobilizing resources and reaching out to contacts to help Emily and Oliver. This isn't charity, he reminded himself. It's about giving them a real chance. His first stop was a local community center he'd supported before. Speaking with the director, Keanu laid out Emily's situation. She needs temporary housing, social services, and ideally a job, he explained. The director nodded. "We can help. I'll also share job leads." Grateful, Keanu made a donation, ensuring others in similar situations would benefit as well. That afternoon, Keanu returned to the motel with bags in hand. Emily opened the door, startled by his generosity. Inside the bags were new clothes and essentials for her and Oliver. Fighting back tears, she whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." Keanu smiled. "No thanks needed. Let's talk about what's next." He explained the plan: temporary housing, support services, and job connections. Emily was overwhelmed but nodded, determined to move forward. Later, they arrived at the community center, where Emily was shown a small room with a crib for Oliver. Tears filled her eyes as hope replaced despair. "I can't put into words what this means to me," she said. Keanu gently replied, "Focus on you and Oliver. This is the beginning of something new." That night, Emily laid Oliver in his crib, feeling hope for the first time in years. In the weeks that followed, Emily settled into a routine. With the center's help and Keanu's connections, she secured a part-time receptionist job. Nervous but determined, she showed up on her first day, greeted by supportive colleagues and a patient manager. Each evening, though exhausted, she felt a renewed sense of control over her life. One evening, Emily shared her progress with Keanu, including her decision to reconnect with Oliver's grandparents. "That's brave," Keanu said. "It shows how much you've grown." Watching Oliver play on their apartment floor, Emily felt a sense of possibility. Over coffee one afternoon, she told Keanu, "Someday I'll repay you." Keanu smiled. "You already are, by building a better life for yourself and Oliver." As Keanu drove home under the stars, he felt fulfilled. Emily, too, watched her son sleep peacefully, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Their lives, once defined by struggle, now carried the promise of brighter days, and in their hearts, they knew, even in the darkest moments, light can shine through, often when you least expect it.